What's up, guys? This is Iron Book Reviews, and I am doing the second part of my In the Lives of Puppets review. It's gonna be a lot of the same thing I've been talking about in the first part. I've been thoroughly enjoying this book. So far, it's been incredibly fantastic. Love the characters. Love the slight world building, especially in this second part. I've read all the way up to chapter 10, from chapter 4 all the way up to chapter 10. The world building has been nice, and the mystery of it all, where it ends off, is an interesting place to stop for now, so that I can put out this review. So, what we start off with, I forgot what I left off with in the last part of my review. But Victor and the gang found an android. And the android they found, they have deemed to call HAP. H-A-P. Which was what his plate designation was showing when they were working the body on him. They replaced a couple of his parts, and Victor, making a mechanical heart meant to be for his father, gave it to Hap, so that Hap could reignite, relive, refunction, basically. Interesting stuff. First thing I want to talk about is probably the best joke so far in the book, because Victor and the gang are hiding the android from Victor's father, Giovanni Lawson. And in the scene, while Giovanni is across from the other side of the door, an hilarious joke happened, where Giovanni is asking the gang, "Hey, what the heck are you guys doing in there?" And Nurse Ratchet's response is this. I'll read out a couple of the paragraphs here. Okay. Why? What's going on? This is Giovanni asking. Rambo tugged. Hold up, wait up. Rambo tugged on the tarp hanging over on the other side of the table, pulling on it frantically. He is masturbating, Nurse Ratchet said. Vic choked. Yes, Nurse Ratchet continued. Though Victor identifies as asexual, it is still perfectly natural to explore the wonder that is the human body. I am merely observing to make sure he is doing it correctly. Victor, you need to loosen your grip. It will break off if you are not careful. She turned around, her screen showing a thumbs up. Like I've been saying since the last part of the review, Nurse Ratchet is the funniest character out of the entire bunch and has the best lines out of the entire bunch, in my humble opinion. Now we get some interesting, some interesting world building where the androids obviously don't have private parts. Obviously. There is no reason to have private parts if the android is not made to have private parts. It's just an interesting little tidbit having Vic see and observe that the android doesn't have nipples, has no belly button, and has no private parts. It's just interesting to think about, because you don't really... Well, I mean, I guess you probably do think in terms of what the body parts an android would have. I guess in my opinion, when you think of a normal android, you think of them still having those parts. It's an android, not a robot, right? But in this world, androids, at least this type of android, does not have private parts, or nipples, or belly button, which is an interesting, nice little tidbit in terms of world building. And this is something that I didn't even think about as I was reading through, because Victor is constantly mentioned as being asexual. He doesn't understand the the reasoning for the hype of romance, right? Like, why are they doing this? What's the point? And he's incredibly uncomfortable when talking about sexual activities or just relationship activities in general. And so having the potential love interest for Victor being a android that has no private parts is honestly very interesting. It's a very interesting idea to have, of having the love interest of an asexual character having no private parts. And so it's kind of like the perfect match in a sense. Because yes, asexual people do have sex, but that is not something they are ever driven to do, as far as I have been told. That's not something that they are thinking about, right? Whereas for me, I am a bisexual man, and I do constantly, not constantly, but I do think about sex every now and then. While for an asexual person, that's probably not the case. That's probably not a thought they ever think about, except for like what, maybe once or twice a week. While for me, it's like once or twice every other day, you know? So it's an interesting thing of having I don't want to reiterate, but I just want to say it one more time. It's an interesting thing having the potential love interest Hap not having private parts. And so there's no negotiation that has to go on for Victor, who is an asexual character, to his partner. There's no need to say, hey, I'm not as into this as you are, because Hap has no private parts, right? So, interesting little tidbit there. What is my next note? Again, Nurse Ratched has the best quotes out of the entire book. I'm not gonna constantly tell you every single line that she has, but it's her lines are funny. Her lines are very interesting. Her lines are the best lines so far in the book, in my opinion. I will say this one line though. You electrocuted him. That's what Victor said. I did, she said. I liked it too. I will do it again if needed. She turned toward the android. I will be his mother. He will love me forever. He will have no choice. And if he does not, I will shock him into compliance. I don't know why. It's just funny to hear that voiced by a sociopathic nurse robot of all things. A nice little, oh my god. I forgot the exact term, but when you don't think, not as expected, right, of that type of character. And then we get some, a little bit more of an interesting world building, where Nurse Ratched is talking to Hap. Hap is now awake with the new heart, and Hap is asking where they are. And Nurse Ratched describes the location, the pinpointed location they're at, as being somewhere in Oregon, though she pronounces it as Oregon. So that's an interesting little bit of world building. It gives me a place to put this story at. It's in America. It's in the Oregon is, oh shit, this is about to be pretty bad. Oregon is Midwest, I believe. So somewhere in the Midwest, I think. So it just puts it into perspective where they're at, and just a nice little image being popped into your head, right? And then we get a nice little Asimov quote, nice little Asimov cameo, because this is a story about robots, right? And Isaac Asimov did make a series based entirely on the concept of sentient robots. And so, very interesting that they would give a little, nice little, what do you call it? Nice little quote about it. Let me try to find it here. Oh boy, Nurse Ratched said. I do not have enough psychological or philosophical programming to deal with that. I am unable to answer that question to any satisfaction. Asimov would be disappointed in me. Just a nice little quote and a nice little, what would you call it? Nice little shove, a nice little calling back to Asimov creating an entire series based on this idea, right? Of robots having sentience. And then we get a nice little action scene where Hap wakes up and breaks some stuff, and then Victor's dad, Giovanni, breaks through the door. And this is something that is constantly talked about throughout the book, is that these androids are fucking strong. These androids are built to mess shit up. They are not fragile. They can break through almost anything. They can run Usain Bolt fast with no ounce of fatigue. It's constantly mentioned how crazy the physical abilities of these androids are. So, nice little thing to see. And then we get the constant mentioning of blood throughout the story as well. Because something that has been a constant so far is that in this world, these androids need blood to function. They need blood to actually function and stay turned on. Giovanni asks Victor if he gave some of his blood to Hap, which Victor says yes to. So, it's an interesting little tidbit that in order to get these sentient androids up and running, you need to put some human blood into the mix, or just blood in general. Interesting stuff. And then we get some ominous foreshadowing. A bit on the nose, honestly, TJ Klune, a bit on the nose for the shadowing here. I'll say out the quote, because, as I said, the characters are fine and dandy now. They're just trying to get used to living with Hap now. But, later, much later, when it was already too late, Vic would wonder why his father didn't tell them what he knew. But by then, it wouldn't matter. The world had teeth, sharp and fierce, and they're about to sink into Vic's skin. A bit on the nose for TJ Klune, I might add, but still good foreshadowing. Let me see if I want to read this comedic note out. Because like I said, the book's fucking hilarious. And I'm actually going to skip this because I don't want to reiterate the exact point again, that the book is funny. Because it is funny. And then we get, probably the thing that made me react the most, was an awesome and epic reference back to Wolfsong, the first novel of the Green Creek novels that TJ Klune has written, and I have read all throughout. Because the first romance, if you guys have read Wolfsong, is between Ox and Joe. And Joe constantly mentions to Ox that he smells like candy, smells like candy canes and pine cones and epic and awesome. That's constantly being mentioned in that specific story between Joe and Ox. And then we get a nice little scene where they're in the woods and Rambo, the vacuum robot, picks up some pine cones, and I'll just say out the quote here. My bad, I forgot what we were doing. You won't hear a peep from me until you say, "Oh my god, a pine cone. I love pine cones." He rolled around Hap and rushed forward, picking up the pine cone from the ground. "So epic and awesome," he whispered. That line made me smile so hard. It made me feel so awesome hearing that. A nice callback to a series that is still my favorite fantasy series of all time, in my humble opinion. And then we finally get the hint that our antagonists are arriving. And this is where the book gets incredibly interesting. Because like I said, this book is entirely based on Pinocchio. And a different iteration of Pinocchio, a different world of Pinocchio. Instead of puppets, is robots and androids. Instead of the father being human and the son being a puppet, the father is a robot while the son is a human. So, interesting little twists and turns here. And then we get a mention, because Victor did cut his hand in the scrapyards, though it did come to fruition here, that he is constantly, that his scar is constantly mentioned. And not only that, it's constantly mentioned how the scar would heal, the wound would heal without a scar. And I wonder if throughout the story, he might reignite the wound to a point where it does actually scar. Because it's constantly mentioned by Nurse Ratched and Giovanni, that the scar would not appear. It might actually appear through the story, who knows? And then we get such a fantastic take and fantastic twist to the whale from Pinocchio. This big, all-encompassing nature antagonist that Pinocchio had to face through his story. While in here, the whale is this big, huge, flying blimp machine called the Terrible Dogfish. It's a huge, flying machine blimp that is in the design of a whale. How interesting is that? How cool is that? And not only is it in the description of the whale, the whale is also the ride of the main antagonist of the story, which is called the Authorities. I assume some sort of android society. And another interesting take on the original story is that the cat and fox, who were the first antagonists of Pinocchio's story, those are the symbols of the authorities of this android society that comes and take Giovanni away. That's their symbol. On their suits, there is an etched design of a cat and a fox. Very cool cameo, very cool hint, very cool interpretation of the story. And we get an amazing sequence of seeing these three identical but incredibly eerie androids talking to Giovanni. And not only talking to him, but talking out of turn. One says a sentence, and the other says a sentence, and the third says a sentence. Very interesting take on the androids. A very interesting idea. Because this is a dystopian type setting, as I think it is, where androids are the number one be-all and have killed, I think, I don't know yet, most of humanity. And so seeing them look around and ask Giovanni if there was a human nearby was very interesting. I liked it a lot. The story is getting absolutely insane. Very nice takes on the original. Very nice changes in my opinion. Overall funny. Overall fantastic. I can't wait to see what happens next, because now Giovanni is taken away by the authorities and is going to a city called the Electric Dreams, which I assume is a hint to the artist that did the Electric City, the Electric Dreams. It was an art book and then turned into a movie. The movie was alright, but the art book was all about a dystopian android robot looking world. So a nice little cameo and a nice little what was the word? A nice little show of love to the artist of the Electric Dreams, having that be one of the actual cities in the lives of puppets. So Interesting stuff, guys. Amazing, like I said. This is turning out to be maybe my favorite TJ Klune book of all time. Who knows? But I will see you guys next time for my chapters 10 to 15 review. And yeah, hope you guys have a good one.